The marble hall of the Al-Rashid mansion fell silent, as if someone had turned off the sound. 200 guests, business leaders, socialites, politicians held their breath at the same time. All the glasses of Dom Perignon champagne froze in midair. The camera flashes stopped. The string quartet stopped playing. Amara Williams descended the main staircase with steps that echoed like the beating of a calm heart. Her simple black dress without sparkles or embroidery contrasted sharply with the millions of dollars in Cartier jewelry adorning the other women. But there was something about her, a presence, a quiet strength, an elegance that needed no price tag that made every rich and powerful person in that room suddenly feel small and insecure. Ahmad al-Rashid, owner of a $3 billion oil empire, was leaning against the Austrian crystal bar when he saw her. The arrogant smile he always wore, the same smile that intimidated CEOs in meetings, disappeared completely. His hands, accustomed to commanding boardrooms and closing million-dollar deals with a wave, trembled imperceptibly. The glass of 30-year-old Scotch whiskey almost slipped from his fingers. "My God," whispered Victoria Ashford, wife of an oil magnate, to her friend beside her. "Who is that woman? She's stunning." 3 hours earlier, he had sent the invitation as a cruel joke. Amara had been working for 2 years, tending the mansion's sprawling 15-acre gardens, maintaining 3 ornamental courtyards, and caring for hundreds of rare botanical specimens. A 28-year-old black woman. She was the single mother of a 7-year-old girl named Maya, who arrived at 5 a.m. and left at 6 p.m. without ever looking up at him. Ahmad treated her like expensive furniture, visible only when she needed to be moved, useful only as long as she functioned. "How about we invite the gardener to the charity ball tonight?" He laughed to his billionaire friends over lunch at the exclusive club. "It will be educational for her, of course. Imagine the look on her face, trying to fit in with us." Laughter echoed through the private room. Richard Blackstone, owner of a hotel chain, clapped his hands. "Brilliant. A dose of reality for the less fortunate." The golden envelope with the Al-Rashid family crest was delivered along with her weekly paycheck. Ahmad expected 3 scenarios: that she wouldn't show up, that she would show up awkward and embarrassed, or that she would simply ignore the invitation. Any outcome would give him material for more jokes at the next social gathering. But Amara Williams was not who he thought she was. As she walked through the hall with a quiet confidence that left trails of involuntary admiration, small mysteries began to form like invisible webs. Why was she carrying a small vintage leather bag that looked too valuable for someone with her salary? Why were some of the older guests, especially the old-school businessmen, looking at her with genuine recognition, whispering to each other with expressions of surprise? And most importantly, why on earth didn't she seem the least bit intimidated by being surrounded by some of the most powerful people in America? Mr. William Crawford, a 65-year-old businessman who had built a real estate empire, muttered to his wife, Eleanor, "That woman, she reminds me of someone. I can't get it out of my head." The first narrative loop was being woven like invisible silk. Who was Amara Williams really? If you're enjoying this story of twists, turns, and justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that will leave you speechless. 24 hours before the party, in the small 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, Amara Williams sat on the bed next to Maya, her 7-year-old daughter, who was drawing quietly. The golden invitation lay on the coffee table like a silent challenge. Maya looked up and asked with childlike innocence, "Mommy, why are you sad? Is that golden paper important?" Amara smiled and stroked her daughter's curly hair. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. I'm remembering." And she was indeed remembering. Remembering who she was before she became invisible. What Ahmad al-Rashid didn't know was that Amara Williams had once been part of that world. 15 years earlier, she was Amara Williams Thornton, daughter of Robert Williams, one of the first black entrepreneurs to build a fortune in the financial sector. She grew up in mansions even bigger than Ahmed's, attended private schools in Switzerland, and spoke 4 languages fluently. At 18, she was the most photographed young black woman in New York social pages, dating heirs and attending charity galas. Then it all fell apart in a matter of months. Her father was accused of financial fraud in 2008, charges that were later proven completely false, but too late to save anything. The family lost everything: the investment company, the 3 houses, the reputation built over decades. Robert Williams died of a heart attack at age 52, 3 months after the sentence that destroyed him. Amara, 7 months pregnant and abandoned by her wealthy fiancé, who ran away when the money disappeared, found herself completely alone in the world at the age of 21. But she had a secret that even Ahmad couldn't imagine. During all those years of silence, working in the gardens where she could see and hear everything through open windows and terrace meetings, Amara documented absolutely everything. Every conversation she overheard as she went unnoticed while pruning hedges near the office windows. Every illegal deal whispered in Ahmed's outdoor seating areas when he thought only nature was listening. Every bribe offered to politicians during garden parties. Every lie told to investors. Every elaborate scheme of tax evasion and money laundering. In a shoe box hidden in her bedroom closet, she kept hundreds of audio recordings made with a tiny device, discreet photographs taken with a hidden camera, and confidential documents that accidentally fell from briefcases left on garden benches. 2 whole years of criminal evidence that could destroy not only Ahmad, but at least half of the billionaires who would be at that party. The second narrative loop was silently forming. Why did Amara really agree to work specifically at the Al-Rashid mansion? The night before the party, she made a call to a number she hadn't dialed in 5 long years. "Marcus, it's me." Marcus Thompson, her ex-boyfriend from Harvard and now an award-winning investigative journalist at the Washington Herald, nearly dropped the phone on the desk. "Amara, my God, where have you been? I looked for you for years after your father's funeral. No one knew where you'd gone." "Working," she replied with a bitter smile he couldn't see through the phone. "And gathering evidence." Evidence of what exactly? The truth about who really destroyed my family. And why? The silence on the other end of the line was absolutely deafening. "Marcus, do you still have those old contacts at the FBI? Because I have an investigative story that's going to blow up some of the biggest financial empires in the country." As she spoke, Amara carefully opened the secret box. Hundreds of hours of crystal-clear audio recordings, high-resolution photographs of confidential documents, detailed records of illegal offshore transactions, proof of bribes to senators. 2 years of meticulous, silent work as a professional detective disguised as a gardener. The first unexpected twist was about to explode like a bomb. Ahmad al-Rashid wasn't just an arrogant, prejudiced billionaire. He was the very man who had personally orchestrated the complete destruction of the Williams family 15 years earlier. "Amara," Marcus whispered, his voice trembling. "You're telling me that I'm telling you that I found out who planted the false evidence that convicted my innocent father, who bribed the key witnesses to lie in court, who destroyed our company on purpose so he could buy all the assets for a fraction of their real value." Her voice was perfectly calm, but there was steel in it. "And tomorrow night, at his gala, I'm going to return the favor with interest." Maya looked at her mother, instinctively noticing the subtle change in her tone of voice. "Mommy, are you going to the party looking pretty?" Amara knelt in front of her daughter and held her little hands with infinite tenderness. "Yes, my love. Mommy is going to the party, and she's going to show some important people who she really is." The moment of intense emotion hit like a giant wave. The single tear that slowly rolled down Amara's cheek was not one of sadness or self-pity, but of long-awaited justice finally coming to an end. On the morning of the party, Amara opened her tiny wardrobe and carefully took out the only dress left from her previous life. A simple, elegant black Armani that cost more than 6 months of her current salary. It had been a birthday present from her father when she turned 21. It was the only thing of real value she had managed to hide from her voracious creditors. As she slowly got dressed, the third narrative loop began to form in the attentive minds of observers. If Amara had had all this devastating criminal evidence for so long, why on earth had she waited exactly 2 years to finally act? The answer lay in a yellowed, folded letter she kept with the evidence. The last letter her father wrote before he died, in which he specifically asked her not to seek blind revenge, but justice in the most elegant and definitive way possible. Ahmad al-Rashid had invited the humble gardener to have cruel fun at her expense. But Amara Williams Thornton had accepted the invitation to finally reveal who she had always been. The daughter of an honest man who had been wronged. An intelligent woman who had turned her deep pain into surgical strategy. And now the person who held firmly in her hands the absolute power to destroy the billion-dollar empire built on the ashes of her own family. The secret preparations were finally complete. Justice was about to be served on a polished silver platter. Back in the silent hall, Amara continued walking with the natural elegance of someone born into that world. Each step echoed like a countdown. Ahmad al-Rashid approached her with the forced smile of a predator trying to maintain control. "What a pleasant surprise to see you've come," he said loudly enough for others to hear, hoping to embarrass her. "I hope you're feeling comfortable among us." Amara stopped and looked him straight in the eye. For the first time in 2 years, their eyes met as equals. "Actually, Ahmad, I feel right at home. After all, I've been to much more elegant parties than this." The murmuring in the hall grew louder. Some guests approached discreetly, sensing that something important was about to happen. "Excuse me." Ahmad forced a nervous laugh. "I think you're confusing something." "I'm not confusing anything." Amara opened her small vintage purse and took out an old photograph. "Especially not about this photo taken 15 years ago at your own oil company's charity gala." The photograph showed a younger Amara radiant in a ball gown, standing next to Ahmad and other businessmen. In the corner was the caption, "Amara Williams Thornton, Athos Investments." Silence once again enveloped the room like a thick fog. Ahmad turned pale. "That's impossible. Impossible is what you did to my family." Amara's voice remained calm, but each word cut like a sharp blade. "Williams Investments. Remember the company you destroyed in 2008 with fabricated evidence and bought witnesses?" The first narrative loop was brutally resolved. William Crawford, the elderly businessman who had said she reminded him of someone, stepped forward with wide eyes. "My God, you're Robert Williams' daughter. I knew your father. He was an honorable man." Ahmad tried to maintain his composure, but his hands were shaking visibly. "You can't prove anything. Those were legitimate accusations investigated by the FBI." "Oh, but I can prove it." Amara smiled for the first time that night, a smile that froze Ahmad's blood. 2 years working in your gardens gave me access to a lot of interesting things." She took a small digital recorder out of her bag. "Like this conversation you had with Senator Peterson last week, discussing how to cover up the illegal donations to your campaign." She pressed play. Ahmad's unmistakable voice echoed through the room. "Peterson, the 50 million is clean in the Cayman Islands. No one will trace it. Just make sure the environmental bill gets rejected." Gasps of shock spread through the crowd like waves. Or this call from yesterday confirming the bribe to Judge Harrison to dismiss the refinery case. Another audio clip began to play, each word destroying Ahmad's reputation in real time. Victoria Ashford, the socialite who had praised Amara earlier in the evening, whispered to her husband, "She's been collecting evidence all this time. She's an undercover detective." The second narrative loop resolved itself like a divine revelation. Amara hadn't taken the gardening job out of necessity alone. She had researched, planned, and infiltrated Ahmad's property specifically to collect evidence on the man who destroyed her family. Ahmad tried to approach her, but Amara backed away and raised her voice for the first time. "Don't come near me, Ahmad al-Rashid. You've done enough damage." "You don't understand," he stammered desperately. "It was just business. Your father was in the way of bigger business. My father was innocent." Amara's emotions finally exploded, tears of anger glistening in her eyes. "He built an honest company, employed over 500 people, helped black families invest, and you destroyed him because you wanted to buy our oil assets for pennies." The second unexpected twist hit like a bolt of lightning. Marcus Thompson, the journalist, emerged from the crowd of guests. He had been at the party the whole time, infiltrated as a social photographer, documenting everything. "Ahmad al-Rashid," Marcus announced loud and clear, "you are being recorded live for national broadcast. Everything you've said here tonight is being broadcast to millions of people. The hidden cameras scattered around the hall revealed themselves. Dozens of journalists emerged from among the legitimate guests. The entire party had been a mass journalistic operation. Ahmad realized he was completely surrounded. This is a trap. No, Amara corrected him firmly. This is justice. The third narrative loop closed like a perfect knot. Amara had waited 2 years to act because she needed time to plan not only the collection of evidence, but a devastating public exposure that would ensure Ahmad could never destroy another innocent family. She pulled a thick envelope from her bag. Here are copies of all the evidence. 847 hours of recordings, 312 confidential documents, records of 23 illegal offshore accounts, proof of bribes to 15 different politicians, and contracts for character assassination, including my father's. The federal prosecutor's office has had all of this for 3 days, Marcus added. The arrest warrant was issued an hour ago. As if choreographed, federal agents entered the hall through the main doors. Ahmad al-Rashid, the man who once destroyed empires, now saw his own being demolished brick by brick before 200 witnesses and millions of spectators. Ahmad al-Rashid, the lead agent, announced, "You are under arrest for tax fraud, bribery, money laundering, and conspiracy to destroy evidence." As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Ahmad looked at Amara one last time. "Why did you do this?" Amara stepped closer and whispered just loud enough for him to hear. "Because my father taught me that the truth always wins. It just took me 15 years to find a most elegant way to prove it." The hall erupted in frantic conversation. Some guests tried to slip away discreetly. Others seemed relieved to finally see justice being served. But Amara Williams Thornton, the woman who had pretended to be invisible for 2 years to expose the truth, simply walked toward the exit with the same quiet elegance with which she had arrived. The most sophisticated revenge in history had been executed perfectly, and it all started with a cruel invitation sent as a joke. 3 months after the night that shook Wall Street, Amara Williams Thornton sat in an office that had once belonged to Ahmad al-Rashid himself. The walls, once decorated with trophies of arrogance, now displayed photographs of her father, Robert Williams, and social project from the foundation she had created. The Williams Foundation for Financial Justice now occupied the entire building that had once housed Ahmad's illicit business. It was a poetic irony she appreciated every day. Maya, now 8 years old, drew silently at a small table in the corner of the office. Her drawings were no longer on cheap paper, but she maintained the same sweet concentration as always. "Mommy," Maya looked up. "Why did that bad man do that to Grandpa, who I never met?" Amara paused her review of the documents and knelt down beside her daughter. "Some people, my love, think they can hurt others to get what they want. But what they don't know is that the truth always finds a way to come out. And did you find the truth?" "I did. And now we're helping other families find theirs, too." Marcus Thompson entered the office carrying a stack of newspapers. The Washington Herald's front page read, "Al-Rashid Empire Collapses. 15 more executives arrested." The New York Times headlined, "The gardener who became a symbol of justice. Ahmad's last accomplices were arrested today," Marcus announced with satisfaction. "The corruption scheme you exposed was bigger than anyone imagined. 73 people have been indicted so far." Amara nodded, but there was no cruel triumph in her eyes. Only the serene peace of someone who has seen justice done the right way. And Ahmad, 25 years in prison with no possibility of parole. All confiscated assets have been placed in a fund to compensate the victims of his schemes. Marcus smiled. "Including your family." William Crawford, the elderly businessman who had recognized Amara at the party, had become one of the foundation's biggest supporters. He knocked on the door and entered, carrying an official document. "Amara, I have news that your father will be proud to hear." He handed her the paper ceremoniously. "The federal government has officially dropped all charges against Robert Williams. He has been posthumously cleared of all charges." The tear that rolled down Amara's cheek this time was one of pure joy. 15 years of pain were finally coming to an end with the complete redemption of her father's name. "There's more," Crawford continued. "Williams Investments is being rebuilt with the assets recovered from Ahmad. Would you like to take over as CEO?" Amara looked out the office window, watching the hustle and bustle of New York below. Ordinary people coming and going, working honestly, try to build their lives. She thought of all the gardeners, doormen, janitors, and invisible employees who were still treated like furniture by the powerful. No, she replied calmly. The Williams Foundation is where I belong now. We want to help people like me, people who have been silenced, ignored, or destroyed by those with more power. We want to give a voice to the invisible. Maya approached and held her mother's hand. Mom, you're not invisible anymore. I was never invisible, my love. Some people just chose not to see me, but now they have no choice. Marcus put away the newspapers and looked at Amara with genuine admiration. You know, when you called me that night, I thought you wanted revenge, but you wanted something much bigger. Revenge would have destroyed only Ahmad. Justice is transforming an entire system. Amara smiled, the same serenity that had mesmerized the ballroom on that fateful night. My father always said that the difference between revenge and justice is that revenge destroys those who seek it, but justice builds a better world. Victoria Ashford, the socialite at the party, now volunteered at the foundation twice a week. Many of the guests from that night had become supporters, some out of genuine guilt, others out of fear of being the next ones exposed. Mom, Maya asked as she colored new drawing, why did you wear that pretty dress to the party? Because sometimes we need to dress like who we've always been inside to remind the world and ourselves of our true worth. As the sun set over New York, mother and daughter continued walking. Behind them, the empty mansion was a silent reminder that empires built on lies and cruelty always crumble. Ahead of them lay a future where being invisible didn't mean being worthless, where justice was more powerful than revenge, and where a woman who pretended to be small for 2 years now helped others discover that they had always been great. Sometimes the greatest revolution begins with someone who decides to stop hiding and simply be who they've always been. And when that happens, the world is never the same again. The story of Amara Williams Thornton proves that no matter how hard they try to make you disappear, your truth will always find a way to shine. If this story of justice and courage touched your heart, subscribe to the channel to follow more stories that show that good always wins, even when it takes 15 years for it to.